Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rotimi Okunbayi, and I'm a product marketing manager at Flutterwave. And I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. I'm excited about this. I have fantastic folks with me, my colleagues Felix and Vanessa. But before I introduce my colleagues here, I'm just going to let you know the ground rules so that things are very clear for everyone. So for this webinar, we have the chat section and we have the Q&A section. So when you have a question, please just put it in the Q&A box. You'd see it at the bottom of your screen. It's Q&A. Then there's a chat where you can, if you have any comment or anything, you can put the comments in the chat section. And yes, the Q&A box, we're going to answer your questions. We check everything. We'll look at everything and make sure we answer every question that you have. I'd also like to ask my colleagues to introduce themselves. I have Felix, I have Vanessa, so they'll tell us about their role, what they do, and any fun thing that they do, like any other thing that's fun.
Hi guys, my name is Felix Obinna, and I'm a product designer here at Flutterwave. Well, apart from design, I am a dog dad, I'm a car enthusiast, I'm a gearhead, and sooner than later, I'm going to learn how to play now.
All right, Vanessa.
All right, hi everyone. I'm Vanessa Ejikeme. At Flutterwave, I'm a front-end engineer. Fun things that I do for fun. I love singing, I love to dance. Fun fact about me, I love to play the guitar. So I know how to play the guitar, and I am a pianist as well. Although my piano skills are I'm still working on them, and then I have a tutor as well. But yeah, I really love music a lot. I also love interior deco, and that's one of the things that I delve into as well outside of tech as a whole. And then at some point I intend to also go into carpentry. Yeah, so watch out for me.
All right, so what we're talking about today is design handoffs. So we're my colleagues Vanessa and Felix will be talking about how Flutterwave designers and engineers collaborate and how we do that successfully. And also because that nothing that's supposed to be built or any product that you've seen, it requires a lot of collaboration. And like we all know, building products, working with different people, you have the product manager, you have the designers, you have the engineers working on the front end, back end, like so many things. So many people have to collaborate to get the product out. And so two people who collaborate closely a lot, are designers and engineers. So today we're talking about how they do it, the do's and don'ts, the things that you can miss, the mistakes that people make, and basically just how designers and developers and engineers can collaborate very well together. All right. And before we delve into it, I'd like to let you know about our Flutterwave design blog, where our designers in-house share their processes, talk about the things that they do. They write about what they've built, how they build stuff. And so if you're looking for a design blog, you just need to get some inspiration. If you're a designer, or if you're looking to get into design, you can check out the blog, the flutterwave.design. All right. And also we have the engineering, our API page, our documentation page. You can check developer.flutterwave.com. Find everything there. We are also active on social media, on Twitter to be precise. You can check to follow design, you can follow at Flutterwave Design, the DSGN, then Flutterwave Eng for engineering. So yes, that's it. Then we can get right into it.
For today, we're going to be talking about design handoff and also how we do this at Flutterwave. So first off, what is a design handoff? A design handoff is basically it's part of the product development cycle process, and this is just the major point in this product development cycle where the designer passes on the completed design to the developers / engineers for implementation. So basically, a designer comes up with a prototype based on the specifications that have been given from the product manager for a specific product. And then this is passed on to a designer, to the developer slash engineers to then flesh this into, beautiful web interfaces that we can interact with and also have more functionality compared to what we might have with the prototype from the design. So to have a very successful design handoff, it is very essential that there is very good collaboration between the designer and engineer within that product or within a specific team. So we're going to be going on to talk about hands-off best practices. So we're just going to be highlighting some do's and don'ts that we think are very necessary for different teams to work with. So one of the first do's that we've highlighted here is that it is very necessary to have a design system. And what is a design system? This is just a very basic standard procedure that, where we can template every existing element within within a given product, right? Or within an organization at large. So an example of a design system would just be how, a design elements like buttons are being handled. So you have different button structures. So you might have a delete button that has a color red, which is consistent throughout different products in an organization, or you have a confirmation button that is color green. And that can also speak to reusable elements like modals, navigation bars, the body or the footer of a page, right? So it is just very necessary that there is a standard procedure in which these different elements look like within an organization. And we can see here in the image down below how you have these yellow buttons that highlights maybe confirmation, or maybe say you need to delete something, confirmation, and then you have the ash button that might speak to maybe a draft or something not being available, and then the red buttons that highlight an action, delete or cancel, for instance. So this is just a very basic structure of what a design system should look like. So over to Felix.
The next dose is getting engineers involved early. So this is crucial because, it's a part of the process of building the product. So it's necessary to make sure they understand what needs to be done even before the design starts. What this does is it helps reduce the amount of questions and back and forth in the development, development. So if they are there during they understand the need for some certain design decisions and well to achieve, it would make things easy. So if during the process there is need for engineering to change something, they will understand why the certain decisions were taken, and most likely designer or PM involved discuss and find around it. As things what happens when design works alone, of design to engineering, and then engineering just try sort of reduce friction or moves the relationship now.
Vanessa, you're muted.
Okay, sorry. Sorry for that. So we're going to move on to do's. One very important do in a design handoff process is to ensure that there is a feedback loop after the handoff process. So it is very essential to have a feedback loop after the handoff process. And a handoff process doesn't mean that that is the end and the designer is not going to be in communication with the engineer or developer at that point again. It is a process that is continuous. So there has to be a feedback loop between the engineer and the designer, because there might be changes in the specifications down the line. There might also be necessary questions that the engineer or developer has to, ask the designer along the line. And it is also very essential that the necessary tools are employed in carrying this out. So tools like Slack for instant communication between team members, Notion for product documentation of the product specifications. And with Notion, you see that Notion gives us tools to be able to highlight specific comments and then leave a comment, to gain more clarity on what needs to be done. We also have Figma that is used in prototyping user interfaces, right? And with this as well, too, you can leave comments, you can ask specific questions with this platform as well as Zoom, Google Meet, and the rest of them. So every organization should have communication tools that will work for them and will be necessary in carrying out this feedback loop cycle, so that things are properly documented. And if there is also need to understand why a product maybe might be taking time to build, or why there are certain things down the line that might be dragging, there is a proper documentation process with these communication tools that can help achieve that.
All right. So for the don'ts, the first one is keeping designers and developers in silos. So this is almost like the direct opposite of getting engineers involved early. So for you to be able to have a seamless communication and relationship between designers and developers, it's necessary to make sure that from the onset, there is close communication, there is a proper understanding of what is being done, and everyone knows the reason for certain decisions, both the design and development, and then business-wise, right? So keeping your designers and your engineers working separately, get to design phase, and then the designer comes on board, gets started with design, finishes, and then hands off to the developer, and then goes back to whatever he or she has to do, right? Makes the entire product development process difficult, and it makes it take longer. So it is necessary to make sure that there is no wall separating your design and engineers when you're working to build a product, because if that is the case, you're going to spend more time because there are issues that are going to arise, and then there will be lots of back and forth. And because there is no proper understanding between both teams, or both designer and engineer, there is going to be a lot of misunderstanding, arguments, spend more time going back and forth, trying to track out issues that wouldn't have come up if everyone was on board from the onset.
All right. So another don't is not having a handoff meeting. So certain teams might have a different approach to handoff, which is maybe just to send an email to the developers / engineers that this is what we need to do, and these are the tools, these are the prototypes that we have to implement. So what this can create is it can create some form of ambiguity, given that there is no direct communication between the designer and the engineer. So all you're just reading is text, all you're just seeing is what has been implemented by the designer, whereas there might be questions that the developer might need to ask. So creating time to have a meeting is of the essence, because here and there, let's say maybe an email with this might be sent, say, one day before, and then there is a meeting after that, say like an hour or a day after that. The developer can go through the documents that have been sent and then prep questions to ask the designer or designers in question before kickstarting the development process. So what this helps do is to reduce the risk of ambiguity in this development process. It also helps to gain clarity, and it also helps to shorten the development process as well, because imagine down the line, there are so many questions that could have been asked during the meeting. These questions are then being asked, say, when the development process has kicked off. What that's going to do is it's going to lengthen the development process. So it's very, very necessary to have a handoff meeting prior to kickstarting the development process.
Okay. So we will be moving on to what good engineer and designer collaboration looks like. And the first one is get engineers involved early. Second one is collaborate, don't hand off. Third is account for all states of a design. Be open to new tools to improve collaboration, and don't over specify or be overprotective of your work.
Getting engineers involved early. This is one very important thing that needs to be done, even as it might, because certain times designers and engineers or developers might, as we highlighted in one of the don'ts, is that these two teams tend to work in silos half the time. And when building products, collaboration is of the essence. It might sound very cliche, but it is very essential that designers and engineers collaborate effectively. So when products are being spec'd out and the ideation process is being kicked off, it is not ideal for product managers to just focus solely on having designers giving the specification to the designers alone, right? Because what that does is that the designers are just going to build and spec, they're just going to build prototypes based on their own knowledge, right? Meanwhile, developers and engineers can also come with a better idea or a better way in which they think certain elements need to exist. We also find that certain times designers might, want to do the most, or they might want to employ some form of complexity in their designs. And that's where we need developers and engineers in such meetings, because what happens is that the developers can then, in hindsight, give them reasons why we should make certain things simple, because simplicity is of the essence. And it is also helpful because given that designers and developers slash engineers come from two different worlds, in this way, you can then reduce the risk of having so much ambiguity or complexity in the how a product is being spec'd, or how the user experience of a product, it is being interpreted. And this will also help to it will also reduce the development process as opposed to lengthening it. So it is very essential that designers and developers collaborate hand in hand. So the idea of everybody being in silos is something that we should work on reducing, and have people collaborate a lot, that is designers and developers. So in this image, we have a very small description of how we at Flutterwave, our development process is like, and also the way the different teams collaborate. So we have in the orange circle, this is the PM, and then we then have the bigger circle that has the design and the development and the dev team. So these two teams tend to, you can see that the arrows show how there is a feedback loop between these two teams, and this is because these are the two teams that are to collaborate the most before the final products that are being built or spec'd out from design to development process is then being moved to the QA, and then it goes directly live. So between the design and dev team, right, once a product is being built out to specification, then it can then go to QA. And that is QA means quality assurance for those that are not aware. And then from the quality assurance phase, we also have a backward loop where if there needs to be changes if there are changes that need to be made based on the QA's discretion, that goes back to the dev team. And it's not just the dev team, because certain times the dev team might need to push such feedback to the design team. So this is how we just work hand in hand before different products go live within Flutterwave. I hope this is very clear to all. And if it's not clear, you can leave questions in the chat box.
The next one is collaborate, don't hand off. So, I mean, this sort of goes against what most people know for how product development process works. When is done, ship over to engineering, and then they start implementation. But to be able to get the best out of everything with regards to product building, it is necessary that, I mean, handoff does not just happen as handoff, right? So what this means is when design is done and everyone is on board with what's been done, it's been tested, and everyone agrees that design checks off everything, all the boxes. The design doesn't necessarily just push over to engineering and then move away. Design is there to provide assistance, help review what's been done, make sure that what is being implemented aligns perfectly with what design has done, and also like goes well with the business goals. Because at the end of the day, I mean, if development goes all the way and builds what's been implemented, there's a chance that one or two things can get missed. And this also helps in a situation where you're done and then it goes to QA. We're going to have lots of back and forth in that regard, because QA probably finds some things that are not well done with regards to development, and some things that were not designed that are not in development, some things that were in design that were not implemented the way it was in design. There are lots can actually happen when there is no proper collaboration between design and development. So it's necessary that once design is done, you don't just hand off and move away. You try to provide assistance until the product is completely done, QA is tested, and everyone agrees that what's been built is what needs to be built, and we're ready to go live. Until that happens, design and development should always keep close communication. Okay, so what happened? This is like a screenshot of Flutterwave store, if you've used it. So the way this worked when this was being built was, it was basically like designers and engineers in the same room, working day in, day out to get this done. And what the result of that was that we don't have design finish, and then development had to reach out to design to say this is not working. That was not the case, because it was easy to improve on this. It was easy to spot mistakes. It was easy for changes to be made, because design was there hands-on. Design was there to review. Design was there to assist every step of the way until we were done with this product. And this like goes a long way, because there are sometimes when design does something and does not put some technical barriers into consideration. So if I design this way, it works very well. But then when it gets to implementation, how is that going to be done? Is this even possible? If it's possible, how long is this going to take? Is this going to take longer time to achieve than if we go this route? And there is no way design is going to know all of that if it doesn't involve engineering, and engineering may along the way while implementing what's been designed. I've tried to take a different route without understanding why such decisions were made. And then at the end of the day, we have a product that neither satisfies the user needs or achieves business goals, or even makes the team that built it feel good about themselves.
All right. So accounting for all states of a design, it is very necessary to account for every single state of a design. And here we have said that there is no need to give room for assumption, and also to reduce unnecessary back and forth between designers and developers. Is just very necessary that every single state is accounted for. And just as we have said from the very onset, design systems come in very handy in these regards. And with a very good design system and a very clear design system, what happens is that designers are not going to be without a design system, rather, designers will not have clear parameters or constraints that they will work with. And because we have people have different ideas, people have different ways in which we want to create and innovate. you find that designers without a design system might go overboard and create certain inconsistencies when accounting for different states of design. So say for instance, if there is no design system and then you need to build out a button without a design system where there's a standard way in which buttons should exist. So one person might just have a button that is color yellow, and another person might have a button that is color red, functioning as a confirmation button. So this is not going to be on brand, and this might lead to frustration during the build process for engineers as well, right? Because let's say for instance there is no design system. A design system is not just used within the design team, it is also used within the engineering team as well. So imagine this process is not consistent across board. All just happens is that there is frustration all the way, and then you find that certain things are just being done, they're being done lackadaisically, and there is no consideration for the final, and when the final product eventually comes out, just as Felix highlighted before, every party involved will not be very, very proud of what has been built eventually. So we have a screenshot of our payment link, which is the platform where you can use a user handle in sending money to different beta users, right? So for this specific product, we had a good time building this between the engineers and designers. But one thing that I can say that might have been a very slight problem here was that for the drop down that you can see here, this drop down was sort of different from the drop down, rather when building out this drop down, the former drop down that was here before, which you can't see here, which was implemented by the engineer, was sort of different from the standard drop down that we had. And this is a speak to not communicating or collaborating, and this could have been the fault of the designer or engineer, but I'm not just going to put any blame on anybody here. So in not communicating and collaborating and maybe not accounting for this state, right? And also mentioning this to the designer, right? At some point we found that the engineer just built a different drop down until we had to then loop the designer in to bring in this very standard drop down that is being used across board. So it is of the essence that every state is being accounted for. And even when we have systems where there is a standard design procedure, a standard design system, once communication is off, once collaboration is off, what's going to happen is that things will be done in certain ways that will not work. So at the end of the day, collaboration, communication is very essential. Just like I've said, it sounds very cliche, but there is a lot that can be solved with communicating and collaborating. So that is why it is necessary not to assume. Assumption does not help in any way at all. So that's that.
Okay, next one is don't over specify or be overprotective of your work. So designers and engineers inherently approach things from different points of views, which means that there'll be a lot of back and forth to clarify specifications. And it's necessary that to be able to achieve the perfect relationship between designers and engineers, that both parties are open-minded and receptive to feedback, because nobody knows it all basically, and that also applies to designers or engineers. So a designer does something that he or she thinks is the best way to solve this problem, and then it goes off to the engineer, or probably during a review session, and the engineer says, I don't think this works because of this and this. And then because the designer thinks that he or she knows best, starts arguing with the engineer. Not for any reasonable reason, but basically because, I've put in work to do this and you're telling me this doesn't work. I find that actually it's a very big problem overall for both the designer, for both the engineer, for both the PM, and for everyone involved. Because what this does is, in a situation where there is no proper communication and the engineer decides to implement this because the designer says so, and then at the end of the day, we realize that what's been done does not work. And then everyone has to go all the way back to the drawing board to fix the problem instead of the designer just outrightly, not just blindly admitting, but trying to see things from someone else's view. And the same thing applies to engineering. So designer does something and then you think, no, I can't do this, or this is going to take time. But if you look at it from the designer's view, okay, maybe if we actually go this approach, this is going to be better for users because, I mean, it's probably going to reduce the number of steps it will take, make the process way more seamless, or more. And then, I mean, because I'm the engineer, I'm not going to do this, right? And then we spend more time arguing, and then when it's implemented, the engineer probably just out of anger because his or her opinion was not taken, and then does something that affects the entire product. So it's necessary that whatever you build in, you keep an open mind, try to see what everyone thinks about it, which is why we have review sessions where you share what's been done, walk everyone through it, and see if the solution you're providing makes sense, both on the business aspect and also for the users. So we had a similar situation when we were working on discount codes for the Flutterwave store, and we built that. And then there were like lots of questions, and why was this way, and why is that not that way? Which, I mean, is valid, but also like as a designer, I could have said, I mean, I did this, and then you should buy it, right? But there is need to understand that you are not your users, and you cannot be everybody. So people see things differently, and everyone's opinion matters, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean you take every opinion, right, and then go back into what you're doing as an engineer or as a designer, and then put that in. No, you sift through what you've gotten and then pick the best and then work with it. And if you're not going to work with someone's opinion, it's also very, very necessary to know how to say no and give your reasons. So the person doesn't feel like, I mean, you're belittling me because I don't understand how your code works or I don't understand how to design.
Be open to new tools to improve collaboration online and in person. This seems very simplistic, but certain times, sitting, working together improves collaboration. And we can see that with the COVID era, which is a very good example, we can use in highlighting this. So just imagine how maybe certain people might not have been, they might not have worked in person while COVID hit, and then there was the lockdown era, and collaboration moved fully online. A lot of people might have in their heads said that, oh, I wish that I would have had some time to collaborate with certain people offline because of just that feeling that it gives, where you might tend to be much more productive. But in times like that, it's very necessary to be open to making use of new tools and collaborating online, right? Even as you have collaborated in person with certain people. And this is how we can see that a lot of people, eventually had an open mind to collaborating online, right? And the same way that you would do things offline, a lot of people had to employ all of that too in their online interactions with people. And we can also see how maybe online collaborations sort of reduce unnecessary meetings and back and forth, right? So this is very essential. That is very essential that people are very open to new ways of doing things, right? So for maybe certain environments, like the very orthodox environments where collaboration might just be via having lengthy meetings, right? As opposed to maybe having Slack or having a Notion document where things are documented and then there is communication, right? When working in such environments, it is very essential that we're open to things like this. And for folks that have made use of these very lovely online, these lovely tools that have helped with their development process over time, if you move into a new environment, it is very essential that you should also, recommend these tools to when you're on a new team. Just give let people know that we can use this, and give them reasons why this will help. Give them reasons why this can shorten the development process, and it will help reduce the back and forth on a team. We shouldn't just leave things to how it is being done within an environment. When we see better ways of doing things, we should also be folks that tend to pioneer how this can be used within the system to reduce friction. And we can also employ this while, working on our handoff process.
So the challenges most teams face during design handoff. This list doesn't cover everything. There are lots and more of them, but these are the four we could put together to be able to fit into the time frame of the webinar. So the first one is handoff and done. Second is miscommunication, too many tools, edge cases, and inconsistencies. So most of these things here have been covered in the session. Handoff and done, collaborate, done handoff, miscommunication, and make sure that everyone involved knows what's going on, when what's happening, and everything is communicated properly to everyone. Too many tools, while it's necessary to try to find ways to smoothen the collaboration and communication between engineers and designers, it's also very necessary to not overdo it. So let's not have too many places where different conversations are happening. That makes it difficult for you to be able to sync and put everything together. Edge cases and inconsistencies, that basically covers design system being not properly accounting for different states of a design. You do one state and then expect the developer to use their magic wand and then know what the next state is going to be, and know where there's going to be drop down, know what that's supposed to look like. So overall, it's to understand that you are a human as a designer and you're also a human as a developer. And it is necessary to understand your weaknesses and what role the other person plays. And knowing that, working together definitely brings out the best of every team.
All right, so we've come to the end of the webinar in some way. Now, just the questions. All right, so I'm seeing Erastus's comment here. It says, my question to the panelists is centered around the design process. I understand research needs to be carried before an idea could be implemented, but how often do you carry out user survey while running through the design process? And Felix stated that designers and engineers can have back and forth on how a product can be done. I just want to confirm how a team can challenge any back and forth. Did you get that, Felix?
Yeah, I did. Okay, so basically understanding, this is not a matter of who has the most points or who speaks better English. The overall goal of building a product at Flutterwave is to build the most appealing, the easiest to use, and with the least amount of effort and resources. Right. So if I, as a designer, say, Vanessa, let's build this cup to be square, and Vanessa says, no, it has to be circle, we have two different opinions. So the next approach would be to look at data. Okay, why do you think this should be square? And then I say, research shows that over 45,000 people prefer square cups to circle cups, right? And then we look at that data, and that actually makes sense, right? We'll go with that approach. And if we also look at the data and then Vanessa's suggestion or approach is better off, there is no need for me to keep arguing on that because it doesn't make any sense. Right? So we try to approach our design using data to inform the decisions we make. So we don't decide to go one particular direction because I think it works best or because someone else thinks it works best. That's basically how it starts off, but we try to validate our suggestions, our ideas and assumptions with data to be able to make the best of decisions. I hope that answers your
Right.
question.
I really hope so, Erastus. So I'm trying to open the Q&A box, but it's really not open for me here. Can you guys try to open the Q&A? Because I can see it's showing me two notifications, like there are two questions there. But unfortunately, I can't open it on my end here. Can you try, Felix?
Yeah, okay. So one says at Flutterwave, how do designers spec and document their designs before handoff? Do you use design documentations and how does that work? Okay, so basically before we start any project, we use Notion. So there is necessarily supposed to be a PRD, product requirement document, that clearly breaks down everything that needs to be done and what we are looking to achieve. So this is the problem, this is the what the projected solution, these are the users, and at the end of the day, this is the goal we are looking to achieve when this goes live. So we set the expected goal for the product. I mean, how we determine that this is successful, right? So that's basically how we start off. So both designers, engineers, PMs go through the document, and then we have a call to discuss it. So everyone on board understands what's involved, right? So it's like the first touch point for everyone who's going to get involved in a project, so that along the way, someone doesn't come off and say, why are we doing this? This is confusing, right? And then once we're done with that, design gets started, and then alongside engineering to proceed with that. And then when we get to a stage where we think that design is ready, we also get on a call with everyone, designers, engineers, PM, everyone that was involved from the onset, and then present the design. That's also, I mean, you've gone through the document, you know what we're building, you know what we expect. So this is the design we have for that. Go through it and then let us know what you think. Do you think this meets the goal, or does it not, or why does it not? Basically, we try to build fast and get feedback as soon as possible, because I mean, the longer time you take trying to perfect a particular thing, there is going to be a chance that when you get feedback, you probably have to go all the way back to make all the modifications. So with that, we get feedback and then we go again until everyone basically checks off on the design, and then we proceed to development. Does that answer your
Yeah, all
question?
right, thank you. What was the second question was there? Was it just one?
Oh yeah, the second question is actually not a question. It says thanks for today's session.
Oh, okay, awesome. Thank you all for joining. It's been awesome. Let's wait if we have any other question. We have like about 5 minutes. So if you have any question or any other thing you want to add or any comment, let us know. This webinar is going to be ready. It's going to be available online. We'll put it on YouTube for everyone who attended and everyone who registered actually, so that you can have access to it. So we'll send you an email with links to the video, and also probably share links to the presentation. Sorry, I missed that. The presentation, so that everyone can see and know what we talked about. And yeah, I think we have more questions now. I'm seeing 4. Can you help check, please? I think we have 4 questions now. 2 other questions, sorry.
So the third one here says, when you say design system, were you referring?
You're muted, Felix.
Felix, you're muted.
Sorry. Okay, so the question says, when you say design system, were you referring to style guide? I think Vanessa should take that.
Okay, so there might be similarities between both of them, but for a style guide, I think a style guide speaks more to maybe the way code should be written, right? Let's say for the development team being the front end or back end engineering team, but we're highlighting more the front end engineering team here. So the style guide can just speak to how code should be written. However, design system is just how, you have different elements. So elements like the buttons, something as simple as a drop down, right? Being created in a way where it is reusable at any point in time where a new product needs to be built. This is the same standard in which this element is being represented on. Say, for example, on Butter, this element is also going to be represented on Flutterwave for Business. I hope that answers your question.
I think we have more questions now. Can you help read that again, Felix?
Okay. The fourth one is, when is the next one coming up?
All right. So that's a good question, because we are actually looking to do more of this on design, on engineering, topics centered around on these technical topics. So we want to help engineers know more about our processes, our flows here at Flutterwave. Also educate people, go as deep as talking about our APIs, the SDKs, helping people understand how to use them better. And so the next one, we do not know for sure yet, but it's going to be soon. And we'll definitely send an email and of course announce online about the webinars. But truly, this kind of webinars have come to stay at Flutterwave. So you can expect to see more of this, and most likely more of my face. That's what I decided. So thanks a lot, everyone. Is that it, Felix? Do we have more?
There is one last one.
There's one more question.
Okay.
Okay,
Not read out, Vanessa.
Oh, okay. All right, I'll take this one. So could you also help us on how to practically create a design system? I don't know if Flutterwave have an open source for theirs where we can take a look. So at the moment, Flutterwave doesn't have an open source design system that you can take a look at. But one very basic thing you can do is if you do a simple search on Google for design systems, or you can also Google, it will actually give you Google, Facebook, Airbnb design systems, and then you can look at that and replicate that, and just create a design system for yourself or your organization from there. But that's just one very simple way of going about it.
All right. Thank you so much, Vanessa. Thank you everyone for joining. This was very good. Thanks for taking the time out. We want to be on time as always. And so we're ending this like 4 minutes early. So thank you. You can, like we all say, you can have 4 minutes of your time back for the day. And thanks for joining. Have a wonderful day.